For our second lecture on image-based installation, what I want to do is walk you through capturing an image. This is Activity 2.7 in the book. There are some typos, some mistakes in Activity 2.7, and I'm going to go over them in this lecture. So anyway, I'm going to take you through capturing an image. Let's say that the machine that we're looking at right here, this is the gold standard. This is the master image that I want. I want to capture everything, how I've set this computer up, and I want to copy that over to all the other computers in my company. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to capture this computer as this computer stands right now. So to do that, we need to get into the deployment and imaging tools. So get there, we go to the start menu and we start typing deploy, and that will bring up the deployment and imaging tools. Now, we need to run this as administrator. There are some applications that touch on and manipulate system protected files, things that are very important to the system. The only way you can access those is to run these applications as administrator. And it's not enough that you are logged in as an administrator of the computer. You need to actually manually run this application as administrator. To do that, it's pretty simple. You go to the application you want, you right click it, and you select Run as Administrator. As long as you have administrative credentials, it'll let you do that. So I click Run as Administrator, UAC pops up, says, hey, are you sure? Yes, I do, I'm sure. So I click yes, and it launches the Deployment and Imaging Tools environment as administrator. So Deployment and Imaging Tools environment is a command line environment that allows us to capture and manipulate images. So I'm going to first set up a folder to store the images. Now, this is the first problem that your textbook has. Step 3 on Activity 2.7 tells you just to type MD, which is make directory, and then images. Well, this would make the directory images, but not in the right place. You need to specify that you want to make images on the root of the C drive, not just some directory images. Okay, so make sure you add the C : / instead of just \. Okay, so I do that, and I now have created an images folder on the root of the C drive. Let's use the File Explorer to verify that I did that. Local disk, and there it is. There's the images folder that I just created. So now that I have a place to store the images, I need to capture the image. I am going to capture the image of this computer, and it's going to boil it down to a Windows image, a WIM file. Remember, with our answer file, when we were trying to create the answer file, we had two WIM files. There's a boot WIM and an install WIM. The install WIM was the image that had the entire installation disk for the Windows DVD. So we're going to create that kind of file from this computer. So to do that, we're going to type in a fairly long command. I'm going to pause and type that command, and then I'll come back and talk about it. Again, this is also different than your book. Your book is missing a colon, of all things, and then it also has the order kind of reversed. So I'll type it in, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so I've typed this in, and I made sure it was correct. So the difference in the command that I have versus the command that is on the book is that I have capture image as my first switch. So command line interfaces generally have a command, a program, if you will, followed by a number of what we call switches, things that tell the program what we want it to do. So I'm running the deployment and imaging system manager. I am asking it to capture an image, which is what we're trying to do. I'm specifying where the image file is going to be stored. So image file is going to be stored at C images, and it's going to be called Windows 10 ADK.WIM. Okay, this is where the colon is missing in the textbook, but also the order of the switches. Capture image should be first, not second, and then capture directory should be the second thing that we add. Capture directory is telling DISM where to look for the information to start capturing, and so this is where it's looking. And then this is a label. This is labeling the image that we'll show this label in just a minute. So once I run this and it saves the full image, it'll tell me it's successful. If I were to go to my images folder and I open it up, I now have a Win 10 ADK Windows image. It was created from this command right here. But now that I've created an image, this is still not a full Windows install. It's missing something. One of the things that's missing is the Windows PE, the pre-installation environment. Remember, the pre-installation environment is what actually starts Windows and allows it to run the install program. So that pre-installation environment needs to be there before we can actually install this image that we have. So we need to add that to this image. So to add that, we have another command called append image. Append, A-P-P-E-N-D, means literally to add to stick on at the end. So we're just going to stick on a Windows pre-installation environment to this image. We're going to add it to the image. So I'll type that in and then we'll talk about that. Again, this command also is missing a colon again in the textbook, and I'll point that out in just a second. Okay, so I typed in the rather long command, and I want to talk about this command too. Again, it's the same application, the DISM application, and this time I'm appending to an image. So what I'm appending, what I'm capturing to add to the image is in the Assessment and Deployment Windows Pre-Installation Environment folder. So this is the same thing that we had up here. Notice up here we had program files x86, Windows 10, kits 10. That itself is Windows 10. That's what we are capturing up here. Down here, we are specifically capturing a Windows pre-installation environment that we are then going to add to, append, right? This is what we're doing, we're appending. We are going to add it to this image file, the Windows 10 ADK image file. This is the same file that we just created up here. So this command is going to add to our image that we created. It's going to add the Windows pre-installation environment, the WinPE environment, to it. Now notice the name of this image here was Win10 ADK. Here I named it WinPE. So now we basically have two files, two things stuck together in that larger Windows 10 ADK WIM file. We have Win10 ADK and then we have WinPE. They are now both in the same folder, same file. So if I go to this file, you'll see that it's a little bit larger than it was before. Not a lot, but a little bit. That's because we added the Windows PE environment. And again, the reason we added Windows PE was because we need to boot the computer into something in order to then install the image and then to write the image. So Windows PE will allow us to actually boot the machine and then connect to wherever that image is being stored and then copy that image over. Now, a couple of interesting points about applying images. One is that the WIM image, the WIM format itself, is pretty cool in that you don't need, it doesn't have to completely copy all of Windows over to make the changes that you need. WIM, you can apply a WIM file, a WIM image, to a machine that already has Windows on it, and all it's going to do is change the files that it needs to change. It's not going to just completely overwrite. It's not going to remove other files. It's just going to add whatever it needs to add to make that image the same as what you are looking for. That allows it to be a lot smaller and a lot faster in a lot of senses. The other thing I want to show you is how to see on your image, the WIM image you have, to see what is in there, to get information about it. So if I were to get image info on the WIM file that we've just created, I would have to, and again, this is something that is incorrect in the book. Every time you want to access that image file, you have to start with // image file and then the path to that image file. So if I were to do that, go to images and then win10adk.wim. If I were to get the information about this, notice the first thing that you see here in index 1 is the win10adk. That is what I captured. That was the Windows 10 information that I captured. When I appended Windows PE, that's index 2, notice Windows PE is here. Now, the size of these is actually larger than the size of the WIM file itself. Part of that is because there's some compression, but also because they share a lot of the same files. So it only has added the files that it needs in order to create a full image that we can use. Kind of a neat thing. Now, the very last thing I want to say about imaging, at least in this lecture, is that when we image, What we usually do, and this is covered in the book, I'll let you read the book and do the rest of the activities to understand this more. But what we do is we generally have a separate device, a USB drive, a thumb drive, a share on some network drive somewhere that has a Windows PE environment that you will boot the computer to. So I will start with a brand new computer. I will boot it from a thumb drive or from a network share or something. That will then grab Windows PE. It will download Windows PE onto the computer. It will then boot Windows PE. And so now your computer has a very basic operating system that it will then use to go and get the image and install the image and get Windows up and running. That's generally how this works. So again, read in the book. It goes through and explains a little bit of it. We don't need you to know at a very deep level how this works. We really need just you to know at a high level, this is how you are able to create and apply and then install images. And the techniques that we use, the tools that we use. The test, the exam itself, not my exam, but the licensing exam, is only going to care that you know some of the very basic commands, like the ones that you've seen right here. And you don't even have to know from off the top of your head how to type them or what to type, but you'll need to recognize them. And so more than anything, that's what we'd like you to be able to do, is at least recognize some of these commands and the tools that we are going to use to make this happen. Okay? So that is it for imaging for this week. I will have one very short lecture on provisioning, and then that will be it for week 2. So get to work on your labs, and please, if you have any questions, a lot of you have been very good already about emailing me. This is great. Keep doing that. Ask me questions, and I will do what I can to help you get through. Okay.